Sounds a little far-fetched, but if we can prove the model in the private sector and make a successful dapp that might compete with Facebook and other large companies, then one day we might ask government to implement this and to have accountability and transparency. So all that was to provide a little bit of context and help explain a little bit about the block producers. So starting with the who, block producers are self-appointed and they're all over the world. We rose out of Southern California to support the launch in June and further the long-term success of the chain. But before I go into the geographic distribution, the block producers are voted by all the token holders. So each token allows you up to 30 unique votes. So you can't cast more than one vote per BP, but one token can give you up to 30 unique block producer votes. So there's 21 active nodes that produce actively, and there's 100 backup. I know David introduced the possibility of 50 backup producers. And on the right, we put this graph together about a month ago, and that aims to give a visual of what the producer distribution looks like. Under the proof of work model, you get pooling of hash power. And even though these pools consist of a bunch of private nodes, if they're pooled, then the pool can actually control the hash power. And if there's 3 of the largest pools colluding, potentially you might be able to take consensus and yeah. So there's currently, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, there's 71 block producers listed on bp.eosgo.io, which we're happy to say we helped build. And it's EOSGO is a neutral organization that helps inform people and aggregate some of the block producers and help them present. So this is from that website. There's 71 listed there, and every day there's new announcements. Last week there was 16 or so new announcements, and this is a distribution by country. So China has the majority at 24. EOS is next, and there's a fairly even distribution thereafter. So so some of the big players are coming out and announcing their candidacy. Bitfinex announced this week they're a large exchange. Huobi is an exchange out of China, also very large. Amppool is a big player in the mining game, Ethereum and many of the coins. So as block producers, we've all come together and developed testnets. So I know there's a question about the testnets. There's community testnets that are not produced by Block 1, but aside from these testnets, which by the way we also helped create this along with 4 other block producers. Many of the block producers also have private blockchain environments that many of you are welcome to use and play around with. So please do get in touch if you want access to some of the testnets. So here is a quick visual of what the block production looks like under a test environment. So this is sped up a little bit, but if you visit scholar.eossocal.io, note that EOSSocal only has one S there. Or you can visit EOSSocal, click on block production, and you'll see a link to this where you can see the visual in real time. So the role of a block producer, so it's not just producing blocks, although the technicalities behind block production involves much more. Software updates, the requirement of multiple chains for that scalability that we spoke about, possibly doing the file hosting in the future through IPFS, having backups, redundancy, and being able to scale, further allocating resources where initially you might not have the demand to take up all the capacity that the block producers can offer, and block producers might be able to offer in excess of the token capacity to certain block producers. So governance, that we also need to participate in proposals, take 17 out of 21 votes to be able to propose a change, which then go to token holders for approval. Changes to constitution, account freezing, takedowns, really resulting from dispute resolutions. We might have to take action and enforce some of those judgments. From the community side, it's being accountable to all the token holders, being transparent, campaigning, collaborating amongst each other, discussion, meetups, and many block producers are committing contributions. So we're taking some of the rewards and saying X% will reinvest in education. We might incubate developers. So that's another thing I'll encourage is if anybody's developing, talk to a block producer. They might reserve a certain budget to help fund a lot of these apps. Including ourselves, we'll be publishing our contribution commitments. So we're developing tools as well, which we'll be announcing shortly. We're developing an app, a dapp, which we hope will change 1 billion lives, as Brock Pierce defines it. And we provide support as best as we can. We're a growing team. In fact, we're looking for people to help with the community side of things. So if anybody is interested, please reach out. There we go. So there's a survey from EOS, which is another neutral organization out of Korea, the counterpart of EOS Go. And they had a survey where they asked the token holders, 261 respondents, listed some of the things that they want to see in block producers. It includes supporting communities and dapp development, possibly incubation. So number 2 is a bit of a heated point where there's been proposals to give kickbacks in exchange of votes. So in other words, vote for me and we'll give you some of the rewards, which the Constitution will likely make that illegal, if you will. So another requirement is to have a strong infrastructure, an ability to keep up with scale, to offer transparency, which I think is a necessity, and to provide benefit. Here it says to the Korean holders, but to the holders in general. So come June 1st, the sequence as we see it, we'll start with a boot up, and the boot up sequence, since there is no blockchain, the way that'll come together is all the block producers that want to participate in helping the boot up will throw their hat in the ring, and out of them 22 will be randomly selected, one of which will be the boot up node, and the other 21 will actually begin producing blocks. This is on a volunteer basis, so there is no rewards yet, and then you'll have a live blockchain at that point where the token distribution can be honored, reflecting the ERC token, the EOS ERC token distribution, and it'll be moved over to an EOS native token. And at that point, a smart contract might host the voting mechanism for the block producers, and once the voting is complete, then those elected block producers will then take place of these volunteers. And that's when you have a live chain. So it's important to note that the elections are dynamic. So if you were to be elected on day 1, that doesn't mean on day 2 that you'll still be there. it's an ongoing effort, and this way it keeps all the block producers doing their job, and it keeps them honest. So this is a study that we conducted, and we took the top 250 wallets that hold the EOS ERC20 tokens, and we did our best to exclude those that might be custodial use. And what identified those is a high number of transactions, and some of them were actually labeled as an exchange. And we did the study to try to understand where the token distribution might lie, and to sort of gauge how their one-year ICO might have resulted. And it seems to have quite a fair distribution. The largest wallet holds 10% of the tokens, which is owned by the folks at Block 1. And from our understanding, those tokens will be released over time, but they are reserving the rights to vote. And since they have a vested interest, there's so much venture capital coming in that likely they will have an influence on electing these block producers. No? No? Really? Wow, okay. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay, well that's news to me. So extracting them especially, I think that makes the distribution even more fair. So excluding their 10%, that leaves 25% of the tokens owned by the top 214 wallets, and thereafter the steep falls off. So for example, the 214th wallet only has 0.02% of the total token. So you know, a good result in my point of view.
With most of these wallets, you can't really prove that a large whale doesn't have
good point.
Into multiple wallets, right?
Good point. Yes, and in fact, we have this article on our website, and we do mention, you know, some assumptions that we're making, and some things that we noted, such as one person owning multiple wallets. So how to vote? So this might be a smart contract with a user interface where a token holder should lock their tokens for a 3-day period in order to allow them to vote. And the reasoning behind creating a cost of voting, I mean, it's really not a cost. It's having to stake your tokens. And from what Thomas Cox says, they wanted to create some small barrier for voting. That way, if someone does go through the trouble of voting, then they're passionate, they're informed, they're voting for a reason, not just easily clicking a few buttons.
Question. I was just thinking about that. You have accounts, right? Why doesn't the voting work on accounts instead of wallets?
Good question. I would think that it's per token.
It's a lot very complicated.
Yeah, well, it just hasn't been completely published yet, so we're working on that right now.
Okay.
But it's a bit more complicated than just wallets or accounts and how much you can vote, how much weight you can have on your votes. So we're trying to do that so that we get the fairest possible outcome. Keep putting different things out in the
So
community.
accounts are kind of a good way to do KYC, right?
Yeah, we didn't do KYC on all the tokens as they were coming in. So basically, USA and Chinese nationals theoretically can't stake their tokens and vote. So like I said, so right now it's still in flux.
Okay. Yeah. So stay tuned. That we're expecting more information to be released to the public. EOS Go is a great neutral organization that keeps everyone informed. bp.eosgo allows you to look at all the block producers, read about them, what they might be recontributing to the ecosystem, what their philosophies and passions might be. So feel free to get in touch with us. You can reach us on email. That's my personal email. You can visit our website, eossocal.io, where you would find links to our Twitter, Telegram, LinkedIn. Feel free to call us. We're very accessible. We're an open organization, so we invite anybody that wants to talk shop, play around with the test nets we've created internally, And yeah, anything that comes up, whether it's talking about some of your apps,